Okay, so in the last couple of videos, or the last three videos, what we've done is we've installed obviously CentOS. We've configured a static IP address on this machine of 10.10.10.30. We've then installed Bind and the DNS server. We've allowed this one server to resolve DNS requests on this one server, okay, and we've allowed it potentially to let other machines use this machine as a DNS server as well. We've also downloaded, installed and configured our HTTP server, and we've also put on a default or a basic website on there with the domain name of home.local, and we're able to show the page using PHP. On that note, we've also installed PHP, the basic settings of PHP. So just to quickly summarize on this, let's go inside this virtual machine. So if this is the first video which you watch, this is a virtual machine of David Desktop, and the outermost machine is my personal Linux desktop. Okay, so we're on a virtual machine within inside of a Linux desktop. So inside of here we can see that home.local then goes to this page with the PHP info on here at the moment. Now what we want to do is we want to be able to get to this one machine, okay, using my Linux machine. Okay, so if we at the moment say home.local on here, okay, it's server not found. Alright, so we want to be able to change it so this one machine can then request the DNS resolution from David Desktop, okay, and then it return obviously the IP address of that machine, and then also return the web page. Okay, well, let's just get on with it, shall we? So we don't need to worry about Firefox for now. What we do need to do though is we need to edit and configure the IP tables, the firewall, so we can allow first of all port 80 to come in and to go out, which port 80 already is going out, but to allow it to come in and allow port 53 on TCP and UDP ports, and that's basically it for now. So let's just type in clear. Okay, and what we can first of all do is we can list out the filter table by saying IP tables and then -t for the table which we want, and we want the filter table, and we say -L to list out all of the different the input, output and forward chain. Okay, and as you can see right now we have the input chain, and it has all of these ones here. So we're basically, we can have a look at it in a minute, and then we've got the forward chain and then the output chain, and we're allowing in port 22 at the moment for the SSH service, and then the loopback, and then also ICMP. We're allowing ping requests basically to come in, and then out we're accepting all packets to be sent out with a policy of accept by default. The forward we're rejecting. Now I only have one in-network interface card in here, so it's really it's completely redundant for now. Okay, so let's actually edit the one file itself. So it's we need to edit using vim, so etc sysconfig and then Iptables. But before I do this, let's just open this up so we've got that as history. Okay, before we do this, what we're going to do is we're going to save. So we're going to say Iptables save, and then we're going to redirect it to sysconfig, and then we're going to say firewall. Okay, now this is going to be a backup copy of it, and we're going to edit the firewall file. Okay, so then we don't mess up anything. Okay, so let's then edit the firewall one. Okay, now we get a complete listing of everything. Now what we want to do is we want to make sure that we keep port 22 open for SSH, and first things first, we want to press I for insert mode, and then we want to say A for append, and the chain which we're going to append into is the input chain. Now, because we only have one interface card here, we don't need to really explicitly state which interface we're going to use. Okay, but what we do need to do is say the protocol is of TCP, and then we're going to use the match, and we're going to match the state. Then we say the state is equal to new and established. So any new request is I did spell that right, established, and then we're going to match for the protocol of TCP. This is then going to have the action of accept. Okay, so and then destination port is going to be 80. Right, so we're basically allowing input of port 80. Now let's just test first of all that we can get a web page from it, shall we? So let's press that, and then what we want to do is then Iptables, and then we want to say restore. Okay, and then we're going to redirect it into it, then we're going to say etc sysconfig, and then use the firewall. Okay, I missed the H. Terrible sometimes. That's why we have error messages, to help us like that in situations where David can't spell. They were specially made for me with spelling mistakes. Okay, there we go. So now we can just quickly check to see our table, and we can see that the HTTP port has now been opened for input, and output by default is accepting output anyway. Iptables restore has then reloaded the configurations which we need. Now we should be able to come onto now my personal machine, okay, and using the IP address, okay, of 10.30, we should be able to now get the page which we want. So now we see that we get the home.local. Because we only have one virtual host on there, it's by default used that one virtual host because it can't find anything else. Therefore it used the one at the top of the list and says, hey, I'm just going to show this anyway. Alright, so this is a good thing now. So it means that port 80 is open. Now we can't use home.local because we haven't got port 53 opened yet. Therefore we can't send a UDP request on port 53 to get the used for the DNS resolution. So therefore we now have to open up port 53. So let's come back to our etc sysconfig firewall file that we've created. Okay, and now we need to put in another one here and say, okay, append to the input chain, and this one's going to be ports and TCP. Okay, because we have to do it for TCP and UDP, and we're going to say state once again, and then states is new and established, this time spelling it correctly, and then the we're going to match also the protocol to TCP. We're going to say destination port is 53, and J is then going to accept. We're then going to write this again just for the sake of learning it. Right, and we're going to then the protocol is then UDP this time, and we're going to match same again. We're going to match states, and then once again we're going to say states new established, and we're going to match the protocol to UDP, and this time we're going to say port we're going to say port 53 again, and then the action of accept. Now this means that we're allowing packets in through ports through protocol TCP and UDP on port 53. Therefore the DNS request can be made to this one server. Okay, so let's press escape and $WQ then to get out of it and save it. Now what we need to do is restore the Iptables. Okay, so now we're going to pass into the Iptables restore the firewall settings that we've just written. Press enter. Now we're going to look at list the Iptables filter table out by default, and as you can see here we've got domain on TCP and UDP. So all's good on this. Now currently that's still on this one server it's going to work perfectly fine. but it won't work on my desktop at the moment due to the fact of that I need to now edit the etc resolve. Okay, so let's open up on here the etc resolve, because at the moment I've just got the loopback address on here, and I need to add another name server to the list in order for it to be able to test on 10.10.10.30 to see whether it can resolve that one domain name of home.local. So press escape :WQ to exit. Oh, we need to have root permissions, so we're just going to say actually sudo, because I'm in the sudos file on here, and then just do that again. Okay, so I've insert name server, and then escape :WQ to exit. That's all fine. Now let's just cat out this file just to make sure everything was fine. Okay, it's all there. Now we can ping home.local. Okay, and as you can see, we're getting a ping request, so we know that's working. We can say dig home.local, and let's just make this bigger. And as you can see here, we're getting the DNS request back. That is enough for us to get a web page. So now we can just come here and let's just say http home.local. Okay, and as you can see now, on this machine, which, if just to show you, this machine is got the IP address of 10.10.10.10. Okay, it's on the same local area network, but it can now do a DNS request over to the other machine to resolve that one IP address and that domain name. Sorry. Okay, but we can also still ping Google and do a ping request. Now potentially this is going through the David desktop which we just set up, because it's hitting that first of all and it's saying, hey, this is a DNS server, it can resolve these requests for me. So really this machine is never hitting itself, but if it doesn't find that domain name on the other machine, then it will search the next server, okay, or the next DNS server locally first of all. And if not, then it will go out to the root servers and stuff like that. So potentially that's it done for a DNS server and your HTTP server with regards to opening and closing firewall requests. Now, point to note quickly is that both of these computers at the moment, this one virtual machine and then the physical machine, which is my personal Linux machine in the background here, it only has on the hardware, on the machine, only one network card. Now if you don't know what a network card is, it's where you stick the LAN cable into your one computer. Sorry to sound patronizing, but if you don't know, then that's the question, your query answered. Okay, it's actually where you stick the LAN cable into your machine. Now some machines have two network cards where you can stick two LAN cables in, alright, which means then you can have one coming in, say, from the router and another one going out to then say switch to then provide another network. Alright, so because my machine on this one only has one network interface card, okay, I don't need one on this one. My other server at home, I then have another one with two network interface cards where I run a DHCP server and my in-house web server. Okay, so this then, you would then need the forward chain. Okay, this would, here we opened up port 80 and port 53, so my David machine, my main machine, could then request the domain name through TCP port 53 and UDP port 53. But if we were then on another network using another interface card, then I would have to use the forward chain. Okay, and it would have to be opened up for the output chain, because when it goes from one network interface card to another, then you're using the forward chain. When it's using the same, when you're basically the transmissions coming in through that one cable, alright, then you've got to use the input chain. But that's a whole nother tutorial. The most important thing is that you open up for DNS, with TCP and UDP ports 53. Okay, and this needs to be done before this reject with ICMP host prohibited, because potentially this is just just rejecting everything else. So if it doesn't hit one of these correctly, then it's going to reject everything else. All right. Okay, that's potentially it. So this should solve any queries about how you set up a web server at home so you can connect to the web page and stuff like that. Now obviously there's MySQL server that needs to be installed, maybe phpMyAdmin, there's some other PHP modules that need to be installed, there's some other Apache things, you've then got user directories and stuff, but in essence the fundamentals of this inside of these tutorials over this 4-part series, all your questions should be answered. Now I am going to continue doing specific other videos for web server related topics, okay, but I feel that these 4 videos give you the basis to then go further on to the next step. Okay, so if you don't understand any part of these videos, then go away don't go away, go and watch them again, alright, and try and go on the internet and search some forums and stuff and write these things down and practice it over and over again, because it comes with just practice, and once you understand the logic behind it and also how the packets are being sent, where they're being sent, which configuration files come first and so on. Okay, point to note, the DNS and the HTTP server, they're 2 completely separate things. Okay, when you send a packet to say through let's get out of this, when I send this one request through HTTP, first of all the web browser has to get the IP address, okay, and it does a DNS request first of all. Now once it's finished this DNS request and it knows the IP address which it's got to go to, it then does an HTTP request to this one IP address, okay, and it sends the host name with inside of the header packet. Okay, so it'll say host home.local, right, and it'll send that header packet to an IP address using the protocol of HTTP. Okay, so HTTP protocol and DNS, they're 2 completely separate things, and the server, the name D and the HTTP, they potentially don't know each other's there. Okay, so don't confuse things thinking that the 2 interact with one another. They don't whatsoever. They do their specific own job. Okay, you need to collect the IP address from DNS first of all, and once you've got the IP address, you then send a header request then to the HTTP daemon saying which host name you want to have, okay, and which files you want to have from that. Okay, so this is important to understand. Now as long as the files are under, which machine are we on now? This one. Okay, now another point to note is at the moment, let's just list out this present working directory. This one website was under var, www, and then HTML. Okay, now SELinux has context on these files, okay, which says, if we just do LZ and then this, oh no, we want -D as well. Okay, we can see here this is the folder, okay, and it's of type H. It has the label of httpd sys content _t. Okay, now if these files and folders do not have this label of SELinux, then you will get an access denied. Okay, so if you're wondering why this is not working, and for some reason you've changed the document route to somewhere else, okay, that's not with inside of this directory, you're going to get access denied. Okay, and you can keep trying and trying and trying until you're blue in the face, and it will not work unless you change the context of this one directory and files. Alright, Now it's another tutorial. I plan on doing a tutorial about this, but it's a little bit more than just a 2-second thing. Okay, but just remember, if you've moved the document root outside of the HTML or the www folder, you're gonna have problems. Okay, if you make a directory with inside of the www folder, then it's going to be fine, because that's going to inherit the settings from that one folder. Okay, and it's going to have the label of httpd sys content. So just to show you for an example, so we go inside of the www folder, and we can just come out of that first of all and say okay, you can see here that's still the var directory, so we want to have that directory. And as you can see here, this www directory, okay, is httpd sys content _t. Right, so if we make and we go into this www directory, and we then list out these once again, okay, and we'll just do this one directory. Whoops. Okay, let's do HTML. You can see here this is also httpd sys content. Now we can make a directory in here, for example, and say vhosts, okay, and now do this once again, and you can still see that it's given it automatically the httpd sys content _t label. Alright, so everything will still work fine because it's inherited it from the www folder. Okay, that's just a kind of quick insight to the things which you need to think about with regards to SELinux. Now if you're using CentOS, SELinux is enabled by, or is enforced in order or enabled by default. Okay, I do advise you looking up about SELinux. Okay, but I'm going to make a tutorial about how to change the default document root to another directory in another tutorial, so you understand it. Okay, and also with regards to the user directories, that's important as well for it. Okay, I hope you've learned something from this, and I hope to see you in the next tutorial. Okay, and I wish you a nice evening. Goodbye.